I am Robin. These are tips. Let's not overthink it. Say you want to match this material to that material. Sample the wrong color, sample the right color, set it to divide, and then divide that by the base color. And there you go, materials match. You can steal any GIF. Just drag it into Blender, right-click, press Trace Image to Grease Pencil, set the mode to Sequence, and GIFs are not protected by copyright law, so... right? Ever heard of texture bombing? Add a texture coordinates node, plug it into a Voronoi texture, and then add a noise texture as well, and mix that very faintly into the vector, which is going to warp the Voronoi. Take a UV map into an image texture and scale it down using a mapping node, and here's the issue. You can see that it's clearly the same image repeating over and over again. So here's what you do. Vector math, plug that Voronoi thing into the vector math with add, and then that will offset the texture per cell. You can even rotate it with a vector rotate as well. And now you cannot tell that it's the same texture just repeated over and over again. Cosmos.so is Pinterest, but Moody. You can also filter out AI images, which is really handy nowadays. Yes, that is not a Blender tip. Get clickbaited. Bake the diffused light to a new texture, and then set the base color to black. And then multiply that texture by the base color of the material. Plug it into emission. This object will now render instantly, with no sacrifice in quality. And you can even change the texture afterwards. So, what's the catch? You can't move the light or the object anymore. Nothing's free. Alt-clicking on the folder icon opens that folder in Windows. On Mac, who knows? I want this model on here. So I place a lattice on the bottom, bind the object to that lattice, and then shrink-wrap the lattice to the surface. A quick composition tip here. The image is about what's in the middle. So this image is about the lighthouse. But when we shift it over, it's not quite just about the lighthouse anymore. Now it's about the lighthouse's relation to the ocean. If we shift to the other side, now it's about the path leading up to the lighthouse. And if we zoom out and move it over a bit, now it's about how small the lighthouse is in the world that is big, right? Over here, it's about the spit of land, basically, and the lighthouse is just like coincidental to it. It's actually a really good technique. Just look for what's in the middle and you know what the image is about. When your computer has been on for a full day, viewports lag and renders crash. Restart your GPU on Windows by pressing the Windows button, Ctrl-Shift-B. You will hear a and the screen will blink and you're good as new. It's even safe to do this in the middle of a render. This setup replicates Substance Designer's histogram range node, and it's so good for adjusting roughness. Top value node basically adjusts the roughness level, and the bottom one adjusts the variation in it. So it's basically kind of like a brightness contrast, but tailor-made for roughness channels. That's 10! 20 more to go. And by the way, all these tips are from my newsletter, which is free, comes out every week. If you like my videos, I think you'll like that too. These fabrics have the exact same cloth settings, but they look different from each other. Turn a subdivided plane 45 degrees and then cut out your shape. Then fix the edges with a quick merge by distance. This cloth will fall with more like interesting folds than like a default straight topology cloth. You can also try a decimated plane for like a wrinkly look. When adding grime to glass, don't just add a roughness map. Instead, make a completely separate shader that looks like fatty smudges and then mix that over. You'll get much more realistic material layering. This goes for all glossy materials, not just glass, but like chrome, etc. You can actually make any texture into a render pass. Just add an AOV output node in the shader and plug it in there, and then in the view layer properties, add a shader AOV with exactly the same name. very useful for compositing. And yes, geometry nodes can output attributes to shaders, which can then be AOVs. It gets kind of ridiculous. In the compositor, put all of your color grading between two convert color space nodes. One going from working color space and to filmic log and then back. Anything you put in between those will look so much better than if you didn't. And if you want some lovely grading presets, I made a toolkit called Grades. It does film emulation, grading, has a bunch of presets. Link is where you'd expect. Blender has a text editor. I use this to communicate when I work in a team. You can put like to-do lists, change logs, mild insults, and even in any node editor, you can add a frame and then add text into that frame to explain your noodles. When you render 200 images with the wrong name, download bulk rename utility. It looks insane, I know, but you only need this tiny window. This is search and replace. It's free for personal use, absolute lifesaver. F2 renames an object, Control F2 batch renames, and you have find and replace here too. Fog renders super slow in cycles, but it renders real quick in Eevee, so let's use the best of both worlds, eh? Put the fog in a new collection and set it to indirect only. Then make a new scene as a linked copy. Turn off indirect only. Set this scene to render with Eevee and output a volume pass. Then render both scenes, one with cycles, one with Eevee, and pull both renders into the compositor. Mix them with blend mode add. It looks pretty similar to a pure cycles render, but it renders in a fraction of the time. Make a triangle, snap it to 3 points on a model, and then parent the model to the triangle vertices. It sticks! So snap the triangle points to something else, and thereby align whatever to whatever. When you number your shots, don't go shot 1, shot 2, shot 3, call them shot 10, shot 20, and shot 30, because then, when you need to insert a new shot in between, you can call that 25 without breaking everything. That's 20! You're still here, maybe you want to give me some feedback. I have made a long list of video ideas, and I want to know which ones you're interested in. So, go to the link below to cast your vote. In my experience, the audience knows best. You can make any image into a tiling image. Put the texture on a plane, and then unwrap that plane and pick a square section of the texture in the UV editor. And then make a 3x3 grid of the plane using array modifiers. Now you go to texture paint mode, and in the tools, you have a clone stamp tool. Clone stamp tool works by sampling from where the 3D cursor is and painting where you click. So you can shift right click to place your 3D cursor around, and then it's a matter of just painting out the edges and making sure that things flow smoothly over into each other. When you're done, you can bake it to a new texture and save it to your drive. This geometry node setup smooths geometry. When rendering, use noise threshold. That ensures an even level of quality across the entire image. But what noise threshold to choose? I made you a cheat sheet. So 0.01 is good for most cases, if denoised. 0.0025 is good for higher end production, if denoised. If you download the cheat sheet, there's also a bonus tip for you at the bottom. Something that everyone who renders professionally should know. The material color slider goes all the way from black to white, but real objects don't, except for like Vanta Black and Justin Bieber's teeth. This shirt is about 0.2, and white printer paper is around 0.9. So for realistic objects, try to stay like within that range. When your node graph gets thick, press Ctrl F to search. It even finds where you've used attributes and stuff. Save your renders as EXRs with DWAB compression at 60% quality. It is way smaller than PNG and way higher quality than JPEG. Heck, even zip compression, which is lossless, is still way smaller than PNGs. For Ton's sake, don't render PNG. Thin film is awesome, but it's not obvious how to make it stronger, because that would break the laws of physics. So let's make a black material with IOR 0. In thin film, set the thickness somewhere between 50 and 1000. Now set up a repeat zone with an add shader, like this. The iterations will boost the thin film effect. Mix the result with your base material, and now adjust the thickness to cycle the color spectrum. When you light an interior with a sun, here's a pretty cool trick. You can use nodes on that sun, and then add a color node and put that into a group. Then duplicate the sun and invert the color of that sun. So you're now back to pure white. But now increase the angle of one of the suns, and you'll see a little colored fringe around the edge of the light. And you control that color inside of the node group that you just made. In a very large texture, add a large scale noise as well and split it into R, G, and B. Add a hue saturation value node, and then plug the red, green, and blue channels into the respective slots and remap the ranges to suit your liking, and then enjoy the large scale variation across the whole surface. Triangulate a grid, and in geometry nodes, add a dual mesh node. Instant hexagons, as long as you skew it a little bit with a skew tool. Dual mesh on an icosphere is instant force field shield. Dual mesh on a decimated Suzanne, creature scales. And that is 30. If you loved the video, please let me know. If you hated it, let me know that too. It hurts my feelings, but it's good for the algorithm. Speaking of the algorithm, it thinks you will enjoy this video next.